everyone, this is Neha Garg. I'm the founder director of Red Kite Consulting, and it is a pleasure to meet with you again on the Soar High Talk series by Red Kite Consulting. I do hope each one of you has been well and are enjoying the array of our consulting practices spread across executive search, education, real estate, aviation, migration, and branding. So, on today's topic, I thought I'll pick up an area which has been intriguing to most minds and to shed some valuable light on the subject matter so that one is absolutely certain and clear about the path forward. Or let me put it this way: you have thought about it, or you're possibly thinking about it. You have researched about it, or are potentially researching about it. You have consulted almost everybody, friends, family, colleagues, and almost everyone that you know in the community on this subject matter in one way or the other. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the point-based skill immigration, or which is classically known as permanent residency, which has been on the minds of almost everyone one way at one point in time or the other. We are referring to the classical skill migration towards Canada and or Australia, and pretty much is on the minds of everyone currently as we speak. The reason of putting behind this video is to give a little insight into the imperative do's and don'ts which are essential to understand your pathway in being able to successfully obtain the skilled immigration on the point-based system. Now, we have been flooded with innumerable number of calls day in and out pertaining to why people haven't got their residency. They have been stuck, perhaps misguided, led up a garden pathway, promised the dream of immigration, but it hasn't come true. And I thought it's very important, to sieve the chaff from the grain and for everyone to understand what would be the imperative no's and the definite must knows to ensure that you have a successful application going through for permanent residency. As we all understand, there are fundamentally four pillars which form the backdrop of applying for skilled immigration. This is determined by age, education, work experience, and English language competency, and a host of other supporting factors which could include education onshore of the respective country, contribution by partner points, or having the benefit of a sponsor or a relative in the specific country. Each country has, out of the two, has its own independent way of calculating the point system. But what is very important here is, despite all the videos that you would have watched which tell you what you need to know about calculating your points, I thought I'll shed some imperative light on areas which would make you understand whether you should or should not be taking a step in the direction of skilled immigration. So starting this discussion, I would want to talk about the first aspect which is critical, which is age. Ladies and gentlemen, the cutoff age for permanent residency is at 45. If any of you are 44 going on 45 very closely, I would discourage you from considering this as your choice of pathway to migrate to either Canada or Australia. In ideal circumstances, we recommend people to start off as early as they can. But in having said so, we would like you to obtain our service of getting a free consultation, understanding your family parameters, and see if you're making the relevant qualifying points. But like I said, 45 is the cutoff, and if any of you have been guided to file permanent residency after the age of 45, I'm afraid this is set for failure. So 45 is the cutoff limit, reiterating that, and definitely discouraging from anyone who has the intention of applying for skill-based, point-based migration to not file for permanent residency after the age of 45. This is the most important criteria when looking at PR. The second criteria which comes is the educational qualification part of it. When we're looking at education, I would largely like to let people know that the governments of either Canada or Australia would be looking at qualified degrees from accredited institutions which need to be either a diploma or a degree with a specified period. Trade certifications which are just spanning 1 year do not cover you for the educational qualifications required to be lodging a point-based skilled migration into the respective countries. So for anyone who has done a degree or a diploma, are exceedingly equipped to file for permanent residency in the country and therefore should start their application on completion of their education plus the required work experience. Now, coming on to work experience, it is very important for me to point out, though the eligibility starts from 1 year of qualified work experience after your graduation, we would ideally suggest that people have 2 years of full-time employment. By full-time employment, I do mean that you are working in an organization in a full-time capacity. It is 40 hours per week occupation. You're actually having appointment letter from the organization which details about your roles and responsibilities, your employee code, number of hours that you're working, and your reporting structure. In the absence of a detailed appointment letter from the organization, it becomes very difficult to qualify that employment for the purpose of skilled immigration. It is equally imperative that the compensation received for the work that you're performing is coming into the bank or as checks and is not a salary which is paid in cash. Again, very difficult to quantify, and therefore genuineness or working with an employer with a full-time occupation where you do have records to be able to prove that you worked in a genuine employment are exceedingly essential. At the same point in time, should you have left an organization, having a required relieving letter from the company is excruciatingly important to qualify that entire period of employment that you had with an organization. We spoke about English communication, and to that effect, I'd like to let you know that there are different levels. There is competent English, proficient English, superior English, and the basic level which is required to be achieving or opening your profile in immigration is competent English. By competent English, in classical terms, there are two bodies. For Canada, it is only going to be the IELTS general examination, and for Australia, it can either be IELTS general or a Pearson academic. In IELTS general, it is the minimum qualifying scores for anyone would be Canadian Language Benchmark CLB 6 in each of the bands, which is listening, reading, writing, and speaking. For those who are opting for PTE for Australia, the minimum qualifying score has to be 67. These are important considerations, and the fundamental behind this is very simple. You are migrating to an English-speaking country. You tend to be working there in skilled occupations, wherein the primary language of communication has to be English. And for all of you who feel that English is not a strong point, I would not recommend applying for skilled immigration in any possible way under the point system. Knowing competent level of English and being able to converse, listen, speak, and write is exceedingly important when applying for jobs. It's not a question of just getting the PR. It is also going to be highly important when working in a highly competitive environment, and English proficiency is an absolute must, and there are no two ways about it. I have seen a lot of people whose English communication has been rather wanting and have been advised to file their PR, and as one can imagine, the PR is not coming through. Now, there is no magic wand for not being able to put together the English if you really don't have that as a communication. But for people who are really wanting to look at skilled immigration, I would advise that you please take dedicated coaching, invest some time, put in about 2 months of effort, and then go and give the IELTS examination. This is not something which needs to be done in a hurry, but if you really want it, then I would encourage people to be working towards enhancing their English communication skills. Apart from this, another area where we've seen a lot of failure coming in for a lot of cases has to be doing with the genuineness and the authenticity of the documents. In this regard, the documents can be multifarious, but I'd like to point out on the basic resume, the employments that are shown, and to be able to substantiate that with employment records. And this is extremely important when we're putting up a file for immigration. Now, the qualifying period for permanent residency tends to be the last 10 years of formal employment. So the qualifying period for work employment is the last 10 years of your occupation. So assuming if you're filing now in 2021, the qualifying period would be 2011 to 2021. So the last 10 years of employment have to be substantiated by proper records of employment, relieving letters, joining letters, and definition of the roles and responsibilities. This also brings me to a very, very important point, which is considering the occupation codes against which the permanent residency is filed. In the case of Australia, this is going to be the ANZOC codes. In the case of Canada, this is going to be the National Occupation Codes or the NOC codes for Canada. Extremely important that when you are qualifying for permanent residency in a country, your experience should be rightfully matched with the occupations that you're seeking to be applying to into the respective countries. And therefore, the selection of the occupation codes into either of the countries is extremely important. A lot of the cases that we've seen, which haven't seen the light of day, are hung in the balance for the simple reason that the selection of the occupation code is entirely mismatched to the work experience that the lady or the gentleman would hold. We would highly encourage all viewers to please take the advantage of getting a free evaluation from Red Kite, having a discerning view on the success of their PR application, and only then, with guided counseling, apply for PR with right hand holding and assistance all the way through. So selection of occupation codes, provisioning of the right set of documents is extremely important. Subsequent, at stages where the police clearance or the medical is required, we expect people to be absolutely transparent and put forward the right records and submit them to the respective governments, in order to have a successful outcome of their PR application. As much as one would confide to a lawyer or a doctor, we expect complete transparency from all our clients so that we're in a position to guide. It does not matter at any point should you have an employment, if the company has shut down, you did not receive your salary slips, please talk to us. There are solutions where we can assist you with a statutory declaration or a notarized affidavit, but we will never encourage anyone to be withholding facts and important information from either the Australian or the Canadian government when filing for permanent residency into either of the countries. So on a recap, we're talking about authenticity of all documents at any stage in the process, and it's extremely important. Apart from this, the one more area which I would like for people to be conscious of is to take an active interest in their applications. We have seen a lot of cases where people have been struggling to get access to their accounts. I firmly am opposed to this, and I find this an absolutely wrong industry practice. We realize that a lot of migration companies tend to be putting out, creating email IDs for the applicants and accessing them on behalf. I do not see this as being the rightful practice, and I would encourage every viewer to have a direct access to their accounts and be privy to their login IDs and passwords. It makes no sense for anybody else to be acting on your behalf and you having no knowledge of what is happening in your case. A little bit of interest and being a parallel process account holder is extremely important. You cannot just leave it to somebody who could be inequipped and entirely hang your file up to dry and you not receiving your PR. It's very, very important. I also see a couple of cases which have been spoiled because there's been misleading information given on sponsors or relatives in either of the countries, and when it eventually comes into fact finding, cases are stuck because you actually cannot be putting anyone as a sponsor unless it is a bloodline relative who's already an existing PR holder or a citizen of that country. If you have a relative who's there on a student visa, the respective person cannot be your sponsor from either Canada or from Australia. In the end, the one area which I would like to essentially talk about is we have seen, and I think it's become a bit of a trend, to utilize a lot of fake documentations to let your PR happen. Vehemently opposed to this idea. I would absolutely discourage anyone. If you do have the skills, you have the English competency, you have the occupational skills behind you, please take the correct pathway. Resorting to using fake documentation, be it with regards to education, work, or whatsoever, is not very conducive, because if you are kind of caught in this activity, your PR is definitely not going to happen. So on that note, I would like to, request our viewers to apply their discretion when choosing which pathway to be applying. It is extremely imperative for the point-based skill migration to be absolutely accurate with your submission, have very important referencing letters. This is something Red Kite, our case managers are highly equipped and trained to help you with each stage of the process, be it with your IELTS counseling, advising you on the occupation codes in the respective countries that you're filing, and helping you out with the referencing letters. These referencing letters are nowhere connected to the experience letters that you get from your organization after leaving them. These reference letters are more detailed and accurate documentation which form the top face of your application, which are required to talk about the experience that you hold and have to be in alignment with the occupation that you're seeking into the country. I do hope that this information has been helpful and will help you plan your journey towards permanent residency in a much better way. In case of any doubts, like I said, our services to qualify your cases are absolutely free, and we're more than happy to help you understand if skill-based point migration is essentially the pathway that you and your family are taking. I also, on a closing note, want to talk about one more area which I've seen a lot of people miss out on, is not including their partners in their application. It is my earnest request for each one of you who is married and does have a partner who is skilled, is a professional, and has good English competency, please do file in together. It is important, and it's always a much better proposition to apply for a family permanent residency. May I also add to this that in the case where the spouse is highly competent, has great English, and is an independent professional in his or her capacity, you have an absolutely brilliant opportunity to be applying as two independent professionals and having two independent profiles, doubling your chances for permanent residency into either of the countries. So on this note, I'd like to end this conversation on permanent residency, and I do hope that you found it helpful. It'll help you plan your journey better. Please talk to us. Our website is www.redkite.co.in. For a free consultation, please feel free to call in on or WhatsApp on +91, that's the country code, 9810877693. I certainly look forward to meeting you on many more interesting engagements every week, and look forward for you to be making rightful choices. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell notification so that you're tuning in with us on each of our new videos. And I wish all of you a fabulous weekend ahead of you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.